Nice, man. Nice. And it's always feels so good when you find a sense of purpose and meaning. I mean, it's interesting because I always tell guys like your social circle is a symbol of status, right?
Yeah.
It's like a woman doesn't just date you, she dates also
Yes.
the vision that you are based on the men that you surround yourself with. And I think that the generations that follow us, unfortunately, the younger generations have been very poorly educated, trained, brought up to actually have really good social skills. And so that hurts them, right? Because it's like you don't know how to network, you don't know how to connect, you don't know how to just be in social situations. And I think, that's one of the things that when I was single, I think that's one of the things that I did sort of naturally well. It's just like funny, silly, kind of carefree, pretty direct, pretty forward.
Yeah.
But also I wasn't ashamed or afraid to just go and talk to whoever, like that was really, I would just go talk to anybody. And I think because of my background being so diverse, I could talk to anybody. I could talk to the construction worker, the laborer, I could talk to the CEO, the executive, the artist. Didn't really matter. And I didn't realize how big of an attribute that was for attracting women until later on in life. I was like, oh, my ability to not only talk to anybody, but my ability to have a strong social circle of good men in my life was actually one of the contributing factors to my success with women, because they weren't just looking at me, they were looking at the men I was surrounded with. And I think if you're surrounded, go ahead.
I was saying, think about it evolutionarily. If you're a woman, and this is 50,000 years ago, you're a Pleistocene era woman and cave woman, who are you more likely to have children with that's going to cause you and your child to have a higher likelihood of survival? It's the man who has more alignments. It's not just the biggest, strongest man, although that obviously women find that attractive as well, but it's the man who has the most alignments. That's why humor, I believe, is funny, or humor is very attractive to women, because men who are funny are going to have better social alignments, which has a higher probability for you and your offspring to survive. And also, I think it's a corollary to intelligence. And so these different things, like I hear women say all the time, I like men who are super smart. I think women like men who are very competent. I think that's kind of where that comes from. But yeah, I mean, it's been one of these things where you go back with your network. And it's been one of the craziest, when you explain to guys a lot of times. I'll give you probably the biggest piece of advice that I was giving probably before anyone else. This is probably 2008. And I recommended men have tons of female friends. It's very controversial, especially in the spaces that I run. A lot of the manosphere or like red pill places will have me on their show, and they don't like this advice. They don't like the idea of men and women should be friends. When you have a ton of female friends get you used to being around attractive women. So if you have a bunch of female friends that are your type, but let's say they're married or they're just not you're just not interested in them. You're just put them in the friend zone. When you do that, you get used to being around your type. You get invited to everything. You get it. Like there's no event you don't get invited to, whether it's a self-help conference, whether it's a club, whether it's a huge private mansion party, wherever. There's a great book by Professor Ashley Mears of Boston University. She's a sociologist who went undercover. I think Chris had her on his show. She's a model. She was a runway model who got a PhD in sociology, and she went undercover as basically like a bottle rat for 2 years. And one of the things she said was all the guys who got the best networking opportunities in the Hamptons during the summer were guys who had girls with them. That's how they got invited to all these different parties. And then lastly, and this is the most important one, the women that I would end up dating seriously, I'm introduced to them by women. And when I ask women, the most attractive women I know, I'm like, how did you meet the last 5 guys that you dated? It's a friend introduced me, a friend introduced me, a friend introduced me, Instagram, a friend introduced me. I was like, you ever use dating apps? No, I'm a young, attractive woman. I don't need dating apps. And then it was like, well, what about the guys just coming up and coldly approaching you in the bar? I was like, no, I've never met a guy through doing that. I was like, so how was the friend who introduced you, male or female? It's almost always female. And so I started reverse engineering this, and I said, okay, let me put this into my program. What if you're a guy and you have a ton of girls that you put in the friend zone? What happens then? And then the experiences they had were the same ones that I had, which is women are just keep coming into my life. And just imagine the delta between me going up and talking to a woman who doesn't know me versus a girl coming into a bar, seeing a bunch of girls she knows, and then say, "Hey, come over here and meet Michael." It's night and day. It's not even all that weirdness, that approach anxiety, all that stuff just goes out the door when you have beautiful women with you. And then I go and look in evolutionary psychology. I start looking in the studies, and I believe it was Texas Tech who did a study showing that men are like 2 points higher on a 10-point scale when they're in photographs with attractive women. It's like, okay, cool. This is a concept called mate choice copying in humans. Let me look up more content on this. And I found dozens and dozens of studies of the concept of mate choice copying in humans. Mate choice copying was something that was studied in zoology probably in the 1990s. And then they finally started putting it to humans. And what they found is that women choose men who other women choose. So I started using that as an attraction trigger for guys who generally aren't like facially good looking, who aren't generally good looking. Like, what are the ways that I can generate more attraction? So showing them that was like a huge cheat code, but it was something I was trying to teach like 16 years ago. And I got a lot of flack for it.